Alright, so what we've been doing in the past is determining our probability given a known standard deviation and known value with a known mean. What we're now going to look at is say, well, we know our mean and our standard deviation. How can we determine the score? So if I know what percentage I'm dealing with or what amount of people I'm dealing with, how do I find the score that corresponds to that? So an example might be, I'll explain the calculator in a sec, but an example of that style of question might be, determine the score that would be required to be in the top 20% of the following distribution. Where, what's the information you can read from that? The mean score on the exam is say 45, and the standard deviation is? 4. Square root of 16. So what score would put you in the top 20% of the cohort, as an example? Cool? So to do that, we get our distribution up. So we go to our calculators, we hit distribution, we hit normal, we hit inverse norm, and we should have a few options there. Now, back in the dark days, we only used to have left tails, but they're really generous now. They give you left tails, right tails, and centre. The most important is obviously, if you can work the left tail, it's the only one you need, but the right can be helpful, and the centre every now and then is kind of helpful to have too. So, with this example, I want you to do it with a left tail and a right tail. Now the way these calculators think, what's the total area again? 1. The way these calculators think, if I've got a left tail, it just means it starts at the left and it starts filling up the area using trial and error until it hits the value you tell it to. Until it gets to an area of 0.8 or 0.2 or 0.6 or whatever you set your area to be. Cool? So I want you now, without any further instruction, to tell me the score that would be required to be in the top 20%. What did you get?
What? It was like negative. It was like something to the power of negative 99.
I think you might have set some value.
Is the area meant to be 1 or 0.2?
0 point. Well, I don't know, it depends on your tail. You've got a right tail, so 0.2.
How do you know?
How do I know? So, if I'm dealing with the top 20%, I want a score up here, correct? So if I'm dealing with a right tail, I want 20% of my area. If I'm dealing with a left tail, I want 80% of my area. Does that make sense? So if you set, let's start with the left, set the area to be 0.8 and see what you get. 48 point something. And if I set my tail to be right and I set it as 0.2, I should get the same result, correct?
Yeah.
So back in the dark days, we used to have to figure that out all on our own. There was no right tail option.
Do you like that?
Wait, what's the area meant to be as? Always meant to be at 1?
Less than 1. The total area is 1. So you can't set the area to be 1.
So in this one, we want to be 20%, so 0.2?
Well, it depends which way you're going.
Oh,
So if you're saying a right tail, so if you're coming from the right,
yeah.
then you want 0.2. If you're saying left tail, you want 0.8. The best thing to do with these, and you identified it straight away, when I said where we expect this score to be, we know it's going to be on the right-hand side of the mean, correct? So you already have an idea that it's going to be somewhere around there. So if you frame up the question and try and make sense of it before you start putting in values, that will help you not make errors. Cool? We also looked at rearranging and manipulating the z-scores last lesson, which you should be able to do in this new one. Happy with that? Cool?
So you can go either way, you just have to make sure your
Yeah,
areas
you can go either way. You just got to make sure the area corresponds with the tail approach. So really it's about interpreting the question and knowing what's it asking for. And when you do your education perfect in a few seconds, you'll find that's the real challenge. Cool? Let's go.
Is education perfect or?
Education perfect, yeah.